Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Happy Friday to you all. Happy Friday, Facebook world. Happy Friday, Zoom world. Happy Good Friday to you. Happy Good Friday to you. A special holy. As you can see, today is going to be a little entertaining. Going to be a little entertaining that we have today. Yeah. My shirt, I know my shirt is blue on here, which is very ironic. My shirt is actually purple, but Bryce recognized that my shirt is blue on the screen. Very interesting. We're learning the colors. We got the colors. Well, he knows it's colors, but yeah, it is kind of strange on how that works. But good morning, Facebook world. Good morning, chat world. Good morning, Zoom world. Say good morning. Say happy Easter. Say happy Good Friday to you. For those out there, good morning to you. Thank you for being a part of us. It is Good Friday today. On Good Friday, no matter what goes on, no matter the holiday, whatever takes place, we are always going to be here Monday through Friday. The only time period I am not here is the last week of the year. And I told myself, I promised myself to be able that no matter what, because when I drank every single day. So it didn't matter what was going on. Even a holiday actually even gave me more of a reason to start earlier. So to me, if I can do those type of things, I can do these type of things all at the same time. So for those, there must be a lot of people driving or people just laid in the bed listening to us. So thank you. If you do get a wild hair and want to go on video, I love looking at Cullen, but if there's anybody else that's on video, I won't get. There's Glenn. I even like that Easter shirt, buddy. I like that Easter shirt. It looks like a fresh haircut too. It looks like a fresh haircut. I got a haircut yesterday. So good morning, Pat. Good morning to everybody on here. So thank you for taking time to be with us today on this Good Friday. My name is Brock Zevan. I'm a life coach, business coach, real estate agent, and a dad. Today's going to be a little entertaining for us because right now we have a huge monsoon happening, huge thunderstorms taking place. I got the kids with me. It is a Good Friday. We're going to be hanging or coloring Easter eggs here shortly. And I want to start off as we start every single morning with our affirmation. And for those that are just joining us as on the Facebook world or happen to be here because it's a holiday, good things will happen to me. Good things will happen through me. Everybody, good things will happen to me. Good things will happen through me. So today's message on Figured Out Friday. I did not bring a guest on Figured Out Friday just because of the holiday and want to be respectful for people's, time taking them. So the message today talks about what I talked about yesterday. And so when I was thinking about figuring it out, some people ask me, what am I trying to figure out? What am I trying to do right now in my life of figuring out some things? And so I had down here, one of the goals that I've been writing down was, as you know, I'm trying to talk to 5 CEOs of companies, 5 large individuals who run a show, run a company. But then I started diving deeper of learning about my figure it out, Pat. And so what I said to myself, what am I really trying to do? And I remember my coach saying, Brock, what is it that you want to do? What is it you're looking for in 2023? And I wrote down the word, and you saw it in the Facebook, and the word is exposure. I'm trying to figure out exposure right now in my life. And the more exposure you have, coach always says, it's not a money problem, it's a people problem. We don't have enough people in our lives that we are talking to. And more people that we talk to, the more opportunities we have, Amy. And so I started to think about exposure. And ironically, when I was researching this morning about exposure, there's some different words that came into play. And how ironic that yesterday I talked about the seed and watering the seed. And then today it talked about the seed itself and exposure. And stay with me here on this. Now, my Bryce boy here added some colors and some drawings to my notes here, so this should be a little entertaining on some of the stuff that I have. But here was the exposure that he talked about. To be exposure, I'm thinking to myself and looking at the Bible, when God was talking to Adam, he talked about being fruitful, okay? being fruitful in exposure. And then when we started looking at fruitfulness, what does actually the fruit start from? Where does the fruit actually have to stem from? Where does it grow from? A seed. So, and actually to be fruitful, you have to be seedful. And in order to be seedful, in order for me to gain exposure and figuring it out, and see, guys, this is what I mean when you're figuring things out. People always say, well, like, Brock, how did you figure this out? Like, I have to peel the onion back. I have to dive deeper. I have to see what is planted inside of me to look at it. It's not a very simple answer. It's not like, oh, let me just go down to Walmart here and go buy, figure it out, and go get a book. Now, I read, but at the same token, it has to make sense so I can have fruitfulness in this exposure. So now I'm connecting the dots. And then I started thinking about seeds and being fruitful again and how that looks, but I got to identify my seed. See, all of us on here are a seed. If you haven't figured that part out yet, figured out Friday, all of us on here are a seed. But yet you are the only person to identify your seed. But when you go and plant, remember yesterday was buried. We're not burying our seeds, we're planting our seeds. And I said to myself, I remember I'm from upstate New York, so I grew on a big farm. We had over 50 acres, and we would have to plant in the springtime. And I remember hearing this word, and how many of you said the word? And since most of you are not on video, which I don't care, but it's okay. You're gonna have to give me a thumbs up. Take a look at your emoji, right, Akimi? I want you to tell me, have you ever heard of the word cultivate? How many of you heard the word cultivate? Thanks, Colin. Cultivate. How many else? Give me a thumbs up if you heard the word cultivate. Thank you, Stephanie. Okay. So when you hear the word cultivate, Maritza, Melissa, I actually wanted to look at the definition. So I pulled up the definition, and cultivate means to prepare and use land for crops or gardening. So then I said to myself, okay, well, I have to identify my seed. My seed right now is growth of exposure, and I have to cultivate the garden, the crops for the where I'm going to plant the seed. I have to cultivate it. Okay. And so when you cultivate it, you got to have the right environment. And we talked about the right environment, right? Can I go plant a seed on and put it on my kitchen counter? I could do that, but that's not really cultivating the seed to giving it in the best position. Now, some of you have a seed and you put it and you've planted it, but I have to say that you didn't identify it correctly. And so that seed that you planted is actually dormant. And I've planted many dormant seeds, and I stand there and I sit there and I go through my life and I'm like, why the hell is the seed not growing? Like, what is wrong with the seed? And what I learned is this. I was planting and identifying a seed that didn't belong to me. It was somebody else who planted it inside of me and said, hey, Brock, here's a seed for you. And I said, thank you so much. And I go and planted it. And sometimes it's from our parents. Sometimes it's from our significant others. Sometimes it's from social media. Sometimes it's from our colleagues. Sometimes it's from our loved ones. They give us a seed and they think that that's the seed we have. Because when I was young, I grew into a life of and I love my parents to death. I'm going on vacation with them next week, taking them on vacation, but I love them. But see, what happened was when I was in upstate New York, the seed that they planted is going to sound like this. You go to work, you come home, you raise kids, you have the weekend, you go to work, you come home, you raise your kids, you have the weekend. How many have been in that routine? How many have planted a seed that's what you are supposed to do? How many of you have heard something like that? How many of you are doing something like, damn, I seem like I'm freaking living in a routine of my world? See, your seed was planted because somebody else gave it to you. And that's the story that you have. You're like, well, that's what I'm supposed to do. There's a saying that because you in the farming world, because you drive a plow on a tractor does not make you a farmer. There's many of you on this call right here that could drive a tractor. Give you enough practice, you can drive a tractor. And you can go plow. Okay. Some of you can pick it up really easy. Some of you take a little bit of time, but you get it. But what happens is it doesn't make you a tractor. I mean, it doesn't make you a farmer. It does not make you a farmer instantaneously because somebody said, hey, you grew up on a farm, which I did. And it doesn't make me a farmer all of a sudden. It was just what I was told to do. It's just what I was imposed to do. If it was up to me or my family, because see, I grew up from upstate New York. Like I told you, I was the first person to move out of upstate New York and move to North Carolina. I was the pioneer who moved. You want to know how many people live in my family now in North Carolina, in Charlotte, North Carolina? Over 57 of us. 57 of us live in my family now. I know you're not a farmer, Mike, even though you do spend a lot of time out there in the outdoors. But see, what happens is your exposure of your seed was very limited. And until I broke free of that exposure, I was living in that world of what my parents gave me of my seed, because that's all I know. That's all I knew. I grew up from a small farm. So you only plant and only grow in the environment that you're conducive to, until I decided to go. How many of you watch something on video now? And back then there was no social media. There was no exposure to these certain things. And I was like, you don't know. I had no idea. All I knew on a farm is that you split wood, you cut down trees, and that's how heat was done. I had no idea that there was such thing as a thermostat. I had no clue that I can go and hit a button and turn it on. Crazy, right? I had no idea. I just thought, like my mom used to say, hey, it's chilly in the house. Brock, we need more wood to go put it in the stove. That's how we did our heat. That's what I knew until I had more exposure. But here is the thing. Okay. Why do I want exposure? Why am I trying to figure out exposure? Because this is the line that I learned. Okay. And here's Bryce. Bryce is excited about this as well. Okay. Hold on, Bryce, because here's the big line. The moment your exposure, the moment you are exposed to something greater, you will drop something lesser. I will say it again. The moment you are exposed to something greater, you will drop something lesser. So at the time period when I was reading this and learning this, I didn't understand why I wanted exposure. See, exposure at the time period of what I was doing meant that my coach told me that I had to talk to more people. And the exposure that my coach was telling me is like, well, Brock, more people are going to see you and they're going to hear you and they're going to want to listen to you. See, my exposure was the farm. My exposure was my parents telling me that I was a blue collar worker and I was going to work at IBM, or I was going to work at Lockheed Martin. I was going to be a school teacher. That was my exposure because that was my environment. And then I heard this line, and God put this line on me today to share with you, because I learned there's a bigger picture for me. See, my exposure is to be with something greater, to drop something lesser. I have to figure out what it is that I need to drop. But in order to figure out what I need to drop, I need to see something bigger. And so when I said I want to talk to 5 CEOs in my life, I was like, man, because if I talk to these 5 CEOs, something else is going to be dropped over here, just like it was. I love talking to my previous coaches in my administration when I was a school teacher for 12 years. But guess what? I don't talk to them as much, not because I don't want to. It's just because I went into a different direction. My exposure was blossomed. And then I realized this. My whole drinking, my whole shit show that I had to go through in my life, my whole debacle. I wrote down this. What I learned is God has me on a bigger picture than what I was exposed to inside my head, my limiting beliefs, because I'm not here to plant your seed. I'm not here to spread seeds. And you might have heard that, oh, I'm going to spread seeds. I'm going to do this. No, I'm here to spread fertilizer. I'm here to spread fertilizer on you and to water your seed, just like I talked yesterday. And I had no idea that this was all coming together until I started reading and learning more, because God said to me yesterday, this is what I was going to say. This morning, I didn't know about it until I started thinking. And he says, I had to have you in this path to be able to help other people today fertilize your seed. Because when I fertilize your seed, you will grow. When I see Stephanie and Christian with my coach up in Nashville, it is a feeling like no other. Because without me planting that or giving them that fertilizer, they would not have exposure to Coach Burt and not go to Nashville. Chris, that's on here, came to my event with Coach Burt in February. I haven't talked to Chris in probably over a year and a half, and now I talk to him several times a week. There's been fertilizer planted from my coach to Chris. Colin from Seattle. I had exposure to Washington, D.C., to a group in over here, and now him and I help each other. And there's fertilizer that's being passed. See, my exposure that I'm aiming for and growing into helps me plant fertilizer for you. And I'm learning that. That is the gift that God gave me. That is the gift that, see, there's a saying that your title walks in the room before you do. And see, my title of my life, the exposure of the public was negative for a period of time. And there still is some naysayers out there, and there's some people who don't believe me, and there's some challenges that I face. But inside, I believe in myself that I have the appropriate exposure now, and the people in my environment help fertilize me. They help water me because I am my seed. My job is to identify my seed, and I have more than one seed. I've identified more than one seed, identified more opportunities, more of an environment. I've planted myself, and I will continue to plant myself. And I'm going to give you permission today, not like you need it, but I want you to start planting more. I want you to start finding more exposure. Get off the plow, get off the tractor, and go find greater exposure. Don't let somebody else tell you you are a farmer. Now, you can be a farmer if you want, but I'm pretty sure a majority of you are entrepreneurs in some capacity. Michelle, I want you to understand that today and Figure It Out Friday probably was meant more to me than maybe some of you on here. And I can only hope that I was able to plant some fertilizer and spread some fertilizer on you to stop letting somebody else dictate your seed. Stop letting somebody else tell you where to plant your seed. Get in the right rooms, get around the right people, look at your goals for the next quarter, see what you have and say, you know what, I want to be around these type of, I want to get in these rooms. I need to be around these people more. I get to talk to my coach every day. 9 months ago, I had no idea who the hell he was. No clue who he was. And now I text him. He calls me. We have morning meetings. We have late evening calls. And I'm getting more exposure with high level people. And that's what it's all about, Jesse. That is what it's all about, is getting that exposure. And when I see this guy over here, my job is to help him with exposure. My job is to give him opportunities. And I want you to do the same for others and yourself. You're eating Starburst. Now, I did not give him that exposure. I did not tell him to have a Starburst for breakfast. Just to let you know, that was not part of the exposure plan. But as I told him, I said, could you just give me 20 minutes? I don't care what you guys do. Just don't do anything bad. Just behave. So, like, I guess Starburst isn't too bad. And it is a fruit. It is part of the fruit. It's part of the fruit. A little more sugar. So, guys, I want you to live your dream. I want you to identify your seed. Okay. I want you to think about that over the course of the Easter when you're sitting there and you're relaxing. Think about the seed, identify yourself, and understand on this Figure It Out Friday, figure out how you can find the greater exposure to go be exposed to something that is greater, to drop something that is lesser. If anything, that was the greatest line. Michelle, thank you. Pat, thank you. Akimi, thank you. Guys, we're going to end today in short unless somebody has something that they want to add, which they certainly can. And Bryce, my phone call is almost done, buddy. My phone call is almost done. I appreciate you all, guys. Happy Easter to you all. God bless you all. Enjoy your family time. Enjoy yourself. We will be back Monday at 8:15. I'll be calling you from the beach next week. So don't you think we won't be here? We will be here. We got a great lineup in store. I want to thank you all for being here this morning and taking time to start your Good Friday with us this morning. Bryce, do you want to say goodbye to everybody? So, and there's Bryce. We'll be saying goodbye to y'all. Love yous. Happy Easter to you. Thank you so much for Figured Out Friday. Have a good one. Be safe out there, especially in Charlotte, because it is nasty out today. Love yous. See ya.